What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the To Be Alive podcast. This is a new series I am starting. This is going to be more interview style, but really conversational interviews, you could say, with different guests, different people that light up my heart, light up my soul. And I'm just excited to have conversations with y'all. So, our first guest is Jeston Lu. Jeston is a friend of mine. We met on Twitter, I believe it was, maybe
Yes,
a
you're
year and a
you're the
half
first
ish.
in-person person I've met on Twitter that actually made it out of the group chat or the DM.
Perfect. Yeah, because we were in the same
Yeah,
city, and that obviously helps. But yeah, Justin has been honestly just you're just such an impressive person. I've been watching you from the sidelines. You post a lot of what's been happening in your life and your journey online. So of course I follow along. And it's been such a pleasure. You're 20 years old, is that right?
yeah, Tony. I'm in a new decade now.
Crazy, man. For
Yeah,
someone your age, it's incredible to see how much energy and love and passion you have for every day you're alive. And honestly, that's why I wanted you on this pod today. So thanks for
dude,
joining
I,
us.
I appreciate that, man.
Of course.
I'm honored to be here, man.
So how you been? Like, this is kind of big. We also, just for the audience, we haven't caught up in like a year ish, I would say, maybe more than that. So this is also a bit of a catch up. So I'd love to hear, Justin, how are you, man? What have you been up to?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the last time we actually saw each other in person was back, I think September of last year. I remember we had a little hike up in like Palisades. I know, unfortunately, that fire burned a lot of it down, but I know we had a good time a year ago. And I mean, a lot has happened. I guess a quick year recap. Currently, I'm a junior at UCLA. I spent the past half a year this year studying abroad in Beijing, China. So I was in Asia for all the way from January till like mid July. So it's been a journey of itself, and came back here, worked in my first ever startup, which has always been like a dream of mine since high school freshman year. So man, that was a dream come true for this summer. And then came back to school starting September, and I'm actually about to go on a second abroad this coming spring. So yeah, man, it's been one of the best years of my life, if I'm being completely honest. So many adventures, so many stories, so many memories. Yeah, it's been awesome, man.
Wow. I feel like when we were hanging out that day, we went hiking and we got coffee, I think
Yeah,
it was. You said the same thing, that this has been the best year of my life. And here we are, like a year later.
dude, it keeps getting better, man. Like it's like, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So if I remember, one of the last times I saw you, or maybe it was through DMs or text, I don't remember. You had joined a startup, like you were contributing to a startup on Twitter, I think it was. Alex Lieberman, is that right?
yes, that was this year. I think when we talked last year, I was working with this guy named Peter Yang. He was like a product manager at Roblox. And then he had a really big newsletter that I was helping, you know, manage behind the scenes, with editing transcripts and just very like, just nitty gritty stuff. I think it was kind of a good entrance into that whole space. But yeah, I mean, work with Alex was this year. So that's been a
Yeah.
pretty cool event that happened.
Would you be willing to share kind of, I'd love to hear from your perspective what the journey has been like for you over the last handful of years, maybe since you entered college. Because I know we talked a little bit
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
your relationship to education and higher education and things like that.
Mhm.
But in your own words, I'd love to hear just kind of like, what has it been for you the last couple of years? How would you describe your life
Oh
journey?
my God, it's been a roller coaster, man. Yeah, I know that when we first met, I think it was April 2024 or March 2024. Like I think I was like that was when I was my first year of college, and it was such a transition period because, like, to give a brief background, I was a classical pianist all the way up until university. So everything that I did in my life was centered around getting into a good college, perfecting your extracurriculars, your grades, and for me that was very much piano, and that's what I spent pretty much like several hours a day practicing, just getting to a really good level. And that was my whole life, up until university. And when I entered freshman year of college, I think that whole, you know, life kind of derailed because now all of a sudden it's like, okay, wait, I don't want to like I was in a music major at this time, and I felt like I didn't want to, do this professionally, at least the classical world. Um, and I had a bit of a falling because I was like, okay, dude, I had a whole identity centered around this one thing. Now I don't want to do it, and what else do I fall back on? So I felt like I was kind of dropping down into like a pit of a void where I just had zero idea what I wanted to do in life. Where at the same time, I felt like other people were, oh my God, like I found this thing that I love. Let me just go all in. People landing internships, landing jobs. And here I was, like pretty much dead stuck in like this giant pit, no idea how to get out. And I felt pretty miserable because I felt maybe this college environment isn't really for me. I felt like it was really restricting me in many ways, just because I felt like a lot of things I was drawn to wasn't really found within the school. So first year was really tough, and I remember I met you like I think second semester of my first year, and that was when I was like kind of like on this recovery phase where I'm like, okay, I'm beginning to find a bit of footing on the ground. I started a podcast where I was interviewing pretty cool people that I wanted to learn from and hear their stories. So I think first year was a very big year where while I had zero clue what I was doing, it was more of, okay, let me just dabble in different things, see what sticks, and let's just go from there. So start the podcast. I think the single-handedly biggest decision I've made online was actually just starting a Twitter account. I actually started back in 2021, 2022, but I hadn't really taken it seriously until like around the time I met you. So I think because you're one of the first people I met online, I think it really showed me the power of like, oh my God, like I can literally message anyone in the world and actually meet up with them in person. Like I thought that was such a serendipitous, such an amazing idea that I felt like not many people tapped into. So I really doubled down on that throughout that summer between freshman and sophomore year. I kept on meeting people, I kept on interviewing people for a podcast. And then last year when we met for like the second time, uh, that was when I was like, okay, I'm pretty interested in the startup space. It always felt like such like a very distant planet or galaxy that I never felt like I could actually tap into because, coming from such a different background, it felt very impossible. But I think with the help of some friends I met online, I somehow got, my first job just working, directly under some big tech creator that I had, no prior experience working in that space. So I was like very, very blown away. And I remember also that year, there was like this tech event that was happening in Bel Air, which was like a mile away from UCLA. And my spontaneous self was like, oh, this would be so cool to, DM my way into this helping out at events. And that ended up happening. And I had like the three best, most eye opening days of my life because suddenly I was like with rooms of like founders and investors. And I was like, holy shit, like this is such a different world that I'd ever experienced. And it felt so raw and so real and honestly like surreal that I was like kind of in this space now. And, the next year happened, which was this year. I decided to study abroad because I felt like to make the most of my college experience, it made so much sense to, go out into the world, study at different campuses and universities all across the world. And one of my big goals was to study in Asia. So I landed in Beijing, studied there for half a year. I think that was single-handedly the best experience of my entire life, going on trips with friends every weekend, exploring different parts of different cities around the country, having these, late night 3 a.m. conversations with friends. Like I think that was such a beautiful, beautiful time. And at that time, I was like, okay, I now have a nice set of experiences kind of in that tech space. And now I wanted to take a notch up and actually work at my first startup. So it was April of this year, and I decided, okay, let me just look at the people I follow on Twitter and see which people I most admire and want to learn from. And I remember like that day, like halfway across the globe in Beijing, I made a whole list of like 10, 15, 20 entrepreneurs I want to work for. And my eyes just suddenly like targeted Alex Lieberman for some reason. And my whole story with Alex, because he co-founded Morning Brew, which is this huge like business newsletter company, which obviously expanded to like many different facets. And I remember following his company ever since the pandemic. So it's been like several years. Like I remember I was like a high school freshman. Every morning I'd open up my email and just read the daily Morning Brew like news briefing about what's happening around the world. And I thought it'd be such a cool experience to work with him. So that very day, I made a whole Twitter thread on pitching myself basically on why I should work with him. And that thread blew up and then that got the attention of him. He reached out to me. We set up a call. I think it was at 4 a.m. Beijing time. We hopped on the call and then we started dabbling in different projects. And then that kind of led me into working at my first startup. And then that ended up, kind of doing like an in-person hybrid type of work over the summer. And then here I am now. Like I finished my internship at the startup and now I'm kind of dabbling with starting my own business. So I mean, it's in a roller coaster, man.
That's
It's an
incredible.
adventure.
It's incredible. One thing I want to ask you about all of that is it seems like you have this ability just to like know, and I know you mentioned you were in a void and you had no idea what you wanted to do, but
Yeah.
from my perspective, it's like, oh my gosh, Justin just knows and somehow just finds these opportunities for himself. And like, I don't know what that process looks like. So would you be willing to share kind of like, how do you arrive at like, I want to work with this person versus that person? Like, what is actually the driver there?
Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting because I was actually on a podcast recently and my friend was asking like, okay, you have you right now, like, junior year self in college versus you back in like, I don't know, high school freshman yourself. It's like the things that I've imagined as a high school freshman, like it's almost like a lot of the things are kind of coming true right now, which is like pretty surreal to think about. But I think the question was like, how did you make some of these things happen? It's like, and it's pretty crazy because like I think there's these days where it's like it feels surreal that I'm kind of living at least part of the life that myself, 5, 6 years would have dreamed of living. But also it feels kind of normal. Like it's almost like this is kind of expected. It's a really strange dichotomy that I'm still trying to balance. But honestly, I really had no idea what I was doing. It's like maybe like when I was young, I had this goal, I had this North Star on like where I want my life to be. For example, like, oh my God, for example, I want to work at a startup. But then you have yourself over here now and you're like the goal you have. But the middle parts, the part to get from A to B is very blurry. And I felt like it can go so many different directions. And the path I took to get from A to B is so different and so wildly different than what I totally imagined it to be. Like, I feel like when we all imagine to achieve a goal, it's like, it's a pretty straightforward path. But I think in reality, a lot of the path is kind of like zigzagging. And I think a really good metaphor is more like, do you know where you're going? Like you have the compass, like it's pointing, for example, like north. But then you keep going, but then it's almost like the entire world is like in complete darkness where you can't really see what's happening around you, like maybe 5 feet out from you where you're standing. So it's almost like you have to trust the compass and just keep walking no matter like how dark it is around you and how unknown everything is. Because I think, it's like we're never going to see the full picture and we're only going to see the full picture when we look back on everything. So like it makes sense a lot, looking back, but when you're actually like, for example, me shooting the pitch out to Alex, like I had zero clue what I was doing. And honestly, I felt like part of it is, oh my God, like, am I going to get like publicly shamed like for doing this in public? Like, it's like, there's like so many doubts. Like, I remember when I published that thread, I was just like visually like shaking because I was like, holy crap, like everyone's going to see this. Like, what am I going to do? So it's almost like you're just leading with a compass with like, it's like zero visibility, but you just keep trusting it and just keep going.
Dude, bars. That is straight bars. I mean, the fact that what you said you're a junior, right? The fact that a junior in undergrad has this kind of wisdom is crazy. Crazy. Like, dude, my favorite
Yeah.
quote of all time is Steve Jobs. He says, you can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect it looking
Yes,
backwards."
yes.
It's the same idea. And the funny thing is I'm at a place in my life now, and we talked about this right before we started this, where I'm kind of on my own for the first time, which is funny because I'm much older than you are, but I'm at that same place of like the void of like, well, who am I? What
Mm.
do I actually care about? What do I actually want to do?
Deep
And
questions. Yeah.
it's quite,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of questions, and I think what's
Yeah.
keeping me going, and not just keeping me going, what's giving me life is realizing that I don't have to have the answers. Like I don't
Mm.
have to know 5 steps ahead. I just like you said, it's like, okay, what is the next thing that is alive? And let me just follow it. Can I follow through on that next thing? And then when you finish that thing, okay, what's the next thing? And then what's the next
Mm.
thing? And then, 2 years
Yeah.
later, you look back, you're like, I went to Beijing, I did this, I did that. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And hence the title of the podcast, To Be Alive, man. Just pursue what makes you alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I just, because, it's very natural for me to compare, who I was at your age to what I'm seeing, like, as you speak to me. And
Mm,
the amount of thinking and overthinking and paralysis that I lived in back then, and
yeah.
honestly, through my 20s, like, it's I don't know, it just lights my heart up, to see, like, how much you thrive. I love seeing the smile on your face every time we talk. Like,
Yeah.
it is such a pleasure, man.
Mhm.
So what do you have, like, what right now is most alive in your life? Like, you mentioned you started this company. I'd love to hear about it. And then in
Yeah.
general, what's alive for you?
Ooh, I love that question, man. Because I think one of my favorite authors is Paul Millard, and in his book, The Pathless Path, I think one of his chapters is like, I forgot what it's called. I can't pull directly from the quote, but it's like, pursue like not what gets you ahead, but what makes you alive. And I thought that was such a good quote. And I feel like that's one of my core defining philosophies. And I'm sure with the name of your podcast, I think it's pretty fitting. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, as of right now, it's man, a lot of things. I mean, one that's very immediate is I'm working on a 2.5 hour film about my whole study abroad in China. So while I was in Beijing, when I was doing all the traveling, all those times with friends, all those meetups, I was just silently collecting footage, like literally with my phone. And at the end of it, I had over like, I think 1,000, 2,000 clips of just everything. And, I've always like created films. Like I created like this thing called music films where I go around different places and countries around the world. And I basically create a whole life story behind this particular place or this particular chapter of my life. And I did four previously. So I did one in Tokyo, Hong Kong, Vancouver, and Toronto. And this one is like the most ambitious. Like I think all my prior films were like 45 minutes, and this one's 2.5 hour film. I got to do it in the span of 2.5 months. Like, can I do it? So basically, what I did was I locked myself in a room pretty much the entirety of this quarter. And I was just pulling, 8 to 10 hour days of sheer composing and editing. And we're actually almost there. Like, we're almost done. Like I think I composed like so far 35 original compositions in like the span of like 6 weeks. Edited a whole ton, and yeah, I mean that's kind of the most immediate thing that's happening right now, and that's like purely on the artistic fronts. And then an interesting story because when I left the startup, quick backstory because like I was doing mostly like marketing content for the startup, and we were at product market fit yet, so there wasn't really a need for marketing, which was why I was like, okay, let me just take a step back. And I remember on the last call I had with Alex back in September, like he was telling me, it's like, okay, you can go work with one of my companies if you want. I'll give you some opportunities. Or I feel like the better thing for you to do would be to start your own business. And then he asked me this really interesting question. He was like, "Is there any reason why you're not doing it right now?" And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like you hit me straight to the gut, because I felt like
Wow.
the whole goal was like I always wanted to start a business, but it almost felt like I was kind of putting it off. I was like, "Oh my god, I just need more skills. I just need
I'm
more
not ready.
experiences."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not ready yet. And I think a lot of the reason behind it wasn't the fact that I didn't have the skills experiences. It's more like I felt like I lacked the courage to take that leap to start my own thing. Because
Mm,
now it's like I think it's a big thing when you're working with someone versus like working for yourself. Because when you're working with someone, it's like a lot of the accountability, the brand of like the company or the startup, it's kind of it rests on that person because that person's the founder, and you're just kind of in the sidelines supporting that role. But then now it's like when you start your own thing, now you're the one taking public accountability. Now it's like people can see whether you fail or succeed. And now it's like, oh my God, you really have skin in the game. So I think a lot of it was, lacking that courage to take that first step. And I think that call with Alex really, pushed me over the line. It's like, dude, you gotta go start it. And I'm like, yeah, you're actually right. So I reflected a lot on it after the call. And that was like right before I moved in for my junior year.
yeah.
And this idea of like Musinary came about. So I think
Mm.
another
W-
backstory is like Musinary. Yeah,
One,
go ahead.
one, one quick thing before you keep going. When Alex on that call said to you that you should start your own business, like,
Yeah.
what happened? Like, do you remember like that moment?
Oh yeah, I remember so viscerally. So I think when he asked that, I started making up all these excuses. I was like, yeah, yeah, I don't feel like I'm ready yet, or like I still feel like I need to learn more. And he's like, bro, the college is like the best time to start a business. Like, what are you waiting for? And I'm like, oh shit, you're right. And then so I remember it was almost like, one of those positions where you know that that guy's right, but you're almost like you're in like just like a very natural self-defense mechanism. You're just trying to defend yourself, even though you know that's that person's right. And I felt like I was in one of those, that crossroads situation where I'm like, damn, yeah, he's spitting bars. I know I gotta take that leap. So I think it was pretty impactful for me because I think it's like I think it can turn out two ways because I can always work at another startup, which is always very good. Like I can always pitch myself to work at a startup, which is always like a backup option. But then it's like I feel like when you're in college, when you're this young, like there is no better time to take that risk because the risk is low-key like the least. So and like, I'm in
Yeah.
college, like I have a meal plan, I could sleep in a dorm. Like it's all good. Like nothing bad's gonna happen. So I think that
Yeah.
was what pushed me over that edge.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah, I had a question, but I lost it. So let's keep going. So you
Yeah,
got
yeah,
this
for sure, for sure.
inspiration. Oh wait, so the question came back.
Oh,
Did
let's do it.
you? So I find it like one of the beautiful things about this story to me is, and I don't know if you felt this. I'm curious if this resonates at all. Is like someone who's kind of already made it is
Mm,
would only say that if he actually believes in you. Like he actually believes you have what it takes. You know,
mm,
like there's kind of an element of like, wow, this person who I am working for, who I admire, who like I went through all this to be in this position, is telling me to start my own thing. And like I think that there's something really cool about that. When your
yeah,
mentor or whoever is the one telling you like, hey, you got it already. You know?
yeah. Yeah, it's like I think it's like I'm a big fan of like I think Founders podcast if you've heard of it. Like David Senra,
Yeah.
he interviews like all these history screens entrepreneurs, and I think there's that one liner that he says like, dude, if there's that one person that just roots for you, like it can mean so much. And I felt like that call with Alex really meant a lot because I think it's like, when you're such a successful entrepreneur and you have someone who's like doing everything to like really help your company succeed, it's like, there's that instinct that's like, oh, I want to keep this guy at one of my companies still. Like, but then for him to say like, oh, you should just start your own thing. I felt like that was very empowering, knowing that it's like, dude, you can always like it'd be nice obviously to have like a really good employee for my business, but I want you like I'm purposely letting
Oh.
you off the hook so that you can do your own thing. So I felt like that was such a like profound realization. I was like, wow, it shows that like I really respect him like as a mentor who like genuinely like because I feel like a lot of mentors it's like sometimes they just give you all the answers in a silver platter. It's like, oh, it's like here's how you start your business. Here's what you should do X Y Z. But I think for him, it's more like he's not telling you what to do. He's more like suggesting, like, oh, maybe you should, like, if I wouldn't tell you to do this, but this is just a suggestion. Like, you don't have to take it, but if you want to, you can go ahead and do it. So I think there's a subtle difference between like telling you what to do as like a mentor who's more experienced
Mm.
versus someone who's just offering just ideas and take it or leave it. So it's really just up to you. It's like, oh, do I decide to take this idea or do I decide to not? So I think kind of giving that space to experiment. I think that was such a big thing.
Oh, that is I love
Yeah.
that so much. Like that preserves your power. Like you get to decide what
Right.
you want to do. Even the most well-intentioned person, if they like, even if they think they know what's best for you, and maybe it is what's best for you, tells you that, and like it kind of loses something. It becomes kind of impure. I don't know if that makes sense, but it sounds like he
Yeah. Yeah.
really kept it clean. He's like, you get to decide. I'm not putting any pressure on you. I love you regardless. Whatever. So so you got this inspiration,
Yeah.
and what'd you do with
Yes.
it?
I mean, got to make something happen. So yeah. So I mean, backstory with the Musinary. It was funny because I came up with this name Musinary back when I was like a 10th grader in high school. It was basically the combination of these two words, which was like music plus visionary. I thought it was very cool. And I created a whole YouTube channel out of it. And it was very silly. I was just making like piano covers of, meme music and just putting it up on YouTube. So it was really nothing. But I remember when I was in 10th grade, there was like a composer that I really respected. And he had a music production studio that he created that had like one of the most beautiful music. Like his name is Thomas Bergerson. He started this production studio called like Two Steps from Hell, which is a pretty interesting name. And I've always looked up to him as a person because I felt like one of my dreams was always to start a music production studio. But it just felt, again, it felt like such a far-fetched vision away from reality, just like working at a startup was. And I really pushed up the idea, but I knew kind of in the back of my head in all of these years that I always want to do something similar to this, just maybe like several years down the line. And that reality kind of came true this year where I was like, holy crap, like, okay, now I spent a year in like startups in tech. And then at the same time, I feel like my whole background as a person has always been an artist. Like, I feel like even though like I love the startup world, like I feel like my whole innate essence of who I am is an artist. Like I love expressing who I am as a person and doing that in like the process of creation. And that I felt like that was always very central to me. But then that kind of came a challenge because I was like, okay, do I go more on the startup side or do I go more on the artistic side? And I felt like the past year I've really doubled down on the startup side. But now it's like, okay, I really love arts. Like I've always wanted to go back to it. What if I find a way to fuse the two without sacrificing either side? And I felt like it was really hard because, I feel like if you go too much on the business side, you might sacrifice the soul, the more artistic side. But then if you go more on the artistic side, you have, the epitome of, the quote unquote starry artist where you just want to create arts, but you don't have any like, marketing or distribution edge to really make your art, go out into the world. So that whole thought process, like, okay, let's try to combine both of them together, take my startup experience and my whole background as an artist into one. And that was where like Musinary kind of came to be because I think one big market like opportunity that I've noticed was, especially in this year in startups, we've seen like the big proliferation of, cinematic launch videos that you've probably seen all over your Twitter timeline on like, oh my God, we're launching this product or like this is how much we raised, the past few months. And then one thing that's really been interesting is like, I think a huge aspect of startups, at least for this year, is the whole like distribution is the moats, like how important putting your brand out there on like social platforms is, especially for this year. And we've seen the rise of cinematography, videography, branding, copywriting, design. Except like I realized there's one aspect that's been left behind, which is sound. Like where's music at?
Mm.
And then that was such a big unlock for me because sound is almost like the last frontier in like the media landscape that startups or companies or brands are completely sleeping on. Like usually people when they think of sound, it's like, oh, we're just gonna add, slap upon like background music on top of like our A+ elite video, and we have like maybe like a B, C tier music behind it. I'm like, bro, like there's so much opportunity to like have really good music behind a startup story or like their brands. And that's kind of how Musinary became. So I branded myself as, the Hans Zimmer for startups, basically like bringing cinematic quality music to a lot of the marketing campaigns and assets that startups are doing. And yeah, I mean, back in September, I was actually doubting a lot because I was like, is music even actually important in startups? And I remember I launched a little video when I first came back to college, and that actually went viral. Like it got like 100 likes plus like thousands, tens of thousands of views, and a lot of comments were like, "Oh my god, like sound is such an underappreciated asset in storytelling." And I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I was initially very skeptical, but then just hearing like my friends and just random strangers on the internet just comment how good of an idea it is, I was like, "Wait, I think I'm onto something here." But then I think I still had a lot of doubts, so I kind of like fell off from it. But then even then, like I only launched like 2 videos, but then there were like people that were actually interested, like, oh, I want you to score my launch video. I'm like, oh my God, like I barely did any marketing, but then there's people like just reaching out to me. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, mostly right now it's just I've mostly been focused on the film. But now I want to really make this an actual like seriously like this opportunity. So I'm kind of in the works. Like I think a few days ago, very recently, you're hearing it off the stove. I contacted one of the biggest creative directors of probably like the hottest like launch video that happened this year, and he was like, "Dude, Hanzo Rosara is like the coolest thing I've ever heard." So I'm gonna call with him in like a few hours. So, you know,
No
we're
way.
actually making some magic happen.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So I'm curious, like what is the art in this? Like how do you develop a the right musical, like, I don't know what the word is, story, I guess, for a given brand?
Yeah.
Like, how would you think about that problem?
To be honest, I don't know yet. I mean, that's when we're kind of here to like experiment.
Mm,
But I think one thing that's pretty interesting is like, I've I kind of understand the startup landscape now, given that I've been in the past year. And at the same time, it's like I create my own films. I know what music fits, what scene, what mood, what emotional elements. So I feel like it's like that combination of all these experiences from these two different worlds. I felt like it felt like Musinary just was like that perfect quote unquote business that felt like it was the combination of all the skills, all my experiences, like all my obsessions combined into one. So it's like at this point, it's like, dude, it's very early in the game. Like I don't exactly know what's gonna be like, but honestly, I think just from just experiences I've kind of gone through, like I think it should be a pretty cool journey.
yeah. Yeah, like I've listened to some of the, well, I've watched some of the videos that you've created. What do you call them? What is it called? Music
Mu-
story?
Music music films, yeah, yeah,
Music films. Yeah, with like the different
yeah,
cities and stuff.
yeah. Dude,
Um,
I remember I showed you back in September last year.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I remember
yeah.
like I was blown away by the compositions you created. Like it literally sounded like something out of like Disney, is what I remember saying to you. Um, Like even for your films, like I'm curious, like what is that process like to think of, okay, here's like what is that artistic process of like, all right, here is the sequence of clips and then, or maybe it's sound first and then clips later. Like how do you actually, how
Mhm.
does a music film come to be?
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty cool. Like I think most traditional films, like how they make it, it's usually you have what is it, like the whole like the storyline and then the film, and then music usually tends to come after once you shoot some of those clips and edit it, because I think all of the music has to match these certain scenes of the movie. I think for music films, it's kind of the opposite way around. It's like where I go to a place first, and then usually like and there's a whole another tangent, but like there's a reason why I'm a geography major. It's like I feel like every city, every place I go to speaks some sort of essence to me. I feel like every place has a soul that I try to capture as an artist, which is why I'm so drawn to like traveling and
Wow.
you know n- journeying all these different parts of the world. Is because I feel like there's like an artistic message that is deeply embedded within a soul of a different place. So that's like kind of like the whole gist of a music film. Is I first I go to a certain location, and then I usually like I spend a few days there and I can kind of capture that feeling that I'm trying to evoke from a city or a place. And then after that, it's like I come back home or something, like back to like school. And then what I try to do is like I turn that emotion into music. So usually that comes with like a melody, an idea. Like I usually capture it in like a voice memo. Like for example, like uh the I call it the Great China Adventure for my upcoming film. I have like a voice memo folder of I think like 655, 60 ideas, all melodies, just like random dots in my head. And I just record it on my keyboard. And like each melody would be like unique to a different city, to a different place, because I feel like each city is just so unique. So that's what I would do. Like the musical idea comes first. And then usually that's like, okay, now I kind of know what clips I have to use. And if I spend like, 2, 3 days in a city, I'll tend to pick a longer track. If it's like a few hours, a shorter track. So it's kind of like on a big picture scale, just weaving like the narrative within the music. So eventually, when I do edit all the clips together, the clips fall pretty like naturally with the flow of the music, with the rise and the falls. So I think that's kind of how the process goes. It's a bit
Hmm.
like a 180 degree switch flip from
Hmm.
the traditional movie making
Yeah.
shifts and everything.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. I think what really caught my eye, or caught my, I guess my ear, caught my, what I really like, I resonated with was
Yeah.
how you feel the soul of a city when you
Yeah.
travel. Is this something you're willing to expand on? It's almost, I know your way of expressing it is through music, so maybe it's difficult to capture the essence of it with words. But I'm curious, if you were to try to describe it, how would you describe it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also like why I'm so optimistic is because there's just so many places out there to explore that it's like almost like the whole world is your canvas. I don't know if you like watched Pokemon growing up, but or
Of
at least
course.
yeah, I'm such a big fan. But it's like how Ash Ketchum, like the main character, every episode or every season, every movie, he would go to like a completely different city, and then he would have a whole like a whole adventure just from that city. Like there's different Pokemons or different cities, different regions, And there's this thing called Pokédex where you collect these different Pokemons. I feel like I'm doing the same thing except for cities and places around the world. It's almost like one of my big life missions is like I have a Pokédex of all these different locations that I've just like mentally marked on in my head that I just want to visit in my lifetime. And every place I take down is just like just gives me so much thrill and just so much fulfillment because I'm like, oh my god, I'm like a world explorer. So I feel like my philosophy for traveling is kind of like that. And oh my god, I lost track of the question, but it's
I
my
was just,
repeating.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just curious about like, you mentioned that you can feel the soul of a city. So like
Mm.
what what is it? What is that soul essence? Like how would you describe that? Is it just a feeling that you have while you're there?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me it's like a kind of double-edged sword. It's like I think I'm very receptive on emotional levels to different environments. And if an environment is very stifling, I feel it almost feel like my insides are like wrenching. And it's like you get that in certain places, right? But then there's also environments on the flip side that are very, very like vast, very expansive, very like open that I can feel very emotionally free. So I think it's like a double-edged sword. I think I was kind of like born with it, like to have like a certain like emotional affiliation with different places. It's like if you told me like let's just compare like I don't know different cities, like I can probably give you like an emotional, you know, balance on like the weight scale of like just assessing different types of cities. But yeah, I think it's always kind of been in my life. Like I've always felt certain things for different places, and it's just kind of a thing I can't really shake off. It's like when
Yeah.
you're there, it's like all the senses just overload you. So you can't really help but, feel certain ways and you can't really help but, turn that thing into arts.
Yeah. The one thing in my life I could kind of relate that to would be photography.
Mm,
When I'm out, and it's specifically in nature because there's just a purity to nature. But I have this
yeah.
draw to purity. So because
Mhm.
nature is kind of just is what it is. Like no one's telling it what to do. It's not complaining about what's happening. Like it's just kind of doing its thing.
Yeah.
I've always felt that in some way, but like I don't know how to explain this to people.
Mm,
And so the photos I would take would always kind of represent this feeling I would have in the moment of like awe. Like I feel awe right now in this moment
mm,
because I recognize something.
yeah.
Um, and I guess that leads me to a question, which is like, you're an artist who is exploring entrepreneurship. How would you describe art in your own words?
That's a good question. I mean, I've heard definitions saying like, art's done for its own sake, which I think is definitely true.
What's your
Um,
definition?
yeah, I think mine is art is something that it's almost like you're taking a very like inner core piece of yourself and you're putting it out there in a way that's gonna persist through time. So I think
Mm,
a big part of why a lot of people are motivated to create art, it's like, or even like photography, it's like we want to establish permanence on a singular moment of time. Like, for example, like when you take a picture of like, I love like the redwoods, right? We all love the redwoods. It's like almost like we're photographing this image and we're pursuing it through time. It's like when we look back on it like 10 years ago, it's like, oh my God, this one moment of time. It's almost like I can step back into that moment. So I think that's kind of how I'll describe arts and why that's a big proponent of why I do arts. It's like the films I create. It's like, yeah, I'm like investing so much time. It's like crazy. Like sometimes I skip class just to compose or just to edit, and it's like people would ask like, dude, that's like crazy. Like, are you mental? But then for me, it's like, yeah, it is kind of mental in the moment, right? But then if you zoom out on a long enough time scale, like I'm not doing this for the present moment. I'm doing it for this film to last through the entire lifetime. Like, because like if you think about it, it's like this film represents such a monumental part of my life where I just have so many amazing memories from. Imagine if I can like, preserve these memories that can last through for like decades and decades. I can show to like my family, my friends, like even like my children, grandchildren. Like that would be such a cool thing. So I think it's like, yeah, short-term investment. It sounds like a stupid idea, but I think for me, it's like art for me, it's like, how do I establish this permanence where I'm just extracting a piece of myself and just laying it out in like the form of creation for like the years and
mm,
years and decades to come.
mm, I love
Yeah.
it.
I mean,
It's like
how do you see photography?
I feel like art for me, including photography, it's like it's what you said. It's an expression of something that I felt within me that
Mm,
is captured through the medium of photography, for example.
mm,
For other people, it could be, it could be writing, it could be poetry, it could be
yeah.
painting, it could be any number of things. It could even be building a business. Like everything is art in a way.
Right, right, right.
But
Yeah,
I think
that's
the
true.
core thing for me is it is something that like is speaking to my soul. It transcends. Like it's
Mm,
not something you go looking for. It kind of finds you, and then
mm,
I try to go out and share with the world. And how I share it with the world is art in whatever form it is for me or for anyone else. Like everyone
mm.
has their own way. That's why I believe
Yeah, yeah,
every
yeah.
single person alive is an artist. They just and if they don't agree with that statement, it's because they don't realize it yet. Because we all have a
Yeah.
unique way of seeing the world. Every single person has a unique way of seeing the world, and they feel something that no one else feels, and so art becomes their way of expressing that with the world.
Mm. I love what he says, like, if you it's like we don't find art finds us. I think
Yeah,
that that's very important, like, with the kind of the media we choose, like, for you, it's like photography. It's like, dude, I stumbled into photography, and for me, it's like, this happens to me in music, so, no, I think it's just such a cool way of putting it.
yeah, yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's what honestly drew me to you at first was like, this is someone who's like, you're really ambitious. You have the motor of like an entrepreneur, but you have this like foundation of an artist, like truly, because you did so many years of piano and all these things.
Yeah.
Like you're musically probably a genius, right? So it's like you have
Yeah.
this foundation, and then but you have this drive for like being in the world, like because artists kind of get a bad rap, right? Like, oh, you're kind of like out in the corner of society, struggling to make ends meet or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But like you're bringing the two together, where it's like, okay, you can build something that's going to be of value to people in society, and it's art, it's fun, it's an expression of myself, and like that's,
Yeah.
dude, that's the intersection that like I'm looking for too in my life in some way.
I love dude, I was actually watching a podcast episode between, Jack Altman, he's, like, Sam Altman's brother. He has this podcast called Uncapped, and he recently brought on the Chainsmokers on, and then they were a and then they were asking this very, very same question. It's like obviously like beef bracket about Chainsmokers. It's like first of all they blew up as artists, especially 2017, 2019, and then recently they started a new VC fund called Mantis, which is very very different to what they do as an artist because artists you create music because you're kind of expressing who you are within you and you just want to share it out to the world. And then for Mantis, it's very different. It's like you're investing in like AI companies, deep tech. That's like so different to what you do as an
Wow.
artist. And then I think Jack asked Alex, he's one of the guys who Chainsmokers, the question is like, how do you feel about balancing between art and business? And then he said, like, I feel tormented inside, which is so true because I feel like it's almost like the yin and yang. It's like you have to kind of like it's a constant battle between like what gets what attention, and it's like sometimes it's like I mean it's very hard to find that mix or that balance between two. Honestly, sometimes a lot of the times it feels like you're mixing oil with water, where you're like, oh my god, let me just try to force these two things together. But I think it's such a special thing because I think very recent I realized like one of my favorite people that I look up to are those who have that balance between arts and business. Like one of my friends, he runs this film production agency for startups. Like I don't know if you follow the company Beehive. Like he was the guy
Mhm.
behind the whole like they release events, which is so cool. And like he loves filmmaking as an artistic craft. But then he's found a way to monetize it into an actual like production studio. And he has a crazy office in New York City. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Like so, I feel like I admire a lot of people who have made this blend seemingly work. And
Mm,
honestly, like that's kind of what I'm trying to do with Musinary and with my life as well.
yeah. I've been in a really randomly deep studying phase of Apple and Steve Jobs. Like for some reason, I've just been very
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
And Steve Jobs did something that like nobody talks about. Like everyone just
Mhm,
assumes that, oh, he's just a genius. He's just born that way. Like I
mhm,
can't do that. And then like we study his processes, his mechanics and whatnot, um, to try to like replicate it. Like that's how I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
the world works, is we try to replicate the success of other people. But
Mm.
what I'm learning as I'm studying him, and I also switched to iPhone, which is crazy because anybody who knows me knows that I was a huge Android. Like I've used an Android my whole life until,
Yeah.
right. So I felt this call, and I think Steve Jobs understood art the way we're talking about it. Like for
Mm.
him, he understood something that no one talks about. And honestly, still, I don't see many people in the world, if any, talking about this or
Mhm.
feeling this. And it is a feeling. Like he's so connected to what it's like to do something or to build something as a consumer.
Mm.
That's why he created all these very unique form factors for the different products that Apple,
Mm. Right.
launched,
Right.
because he was so tuned in to like the feeling of what it is. And then you reverse engineer that feeling through the design of that product. Like, how do I create this feeling as I'm using this thing? And like that to me is that was his art, right? His art was
Mm.
he knows what it's like to use a pen. Like not just, like it's used to write words on a piece of paper, but like he feels like, oh, there's plastic here, there's some rubber over here. Oh, this feels really nice. Oh, actually, I don't like this metal here. This is kind of like I'm talking to that level of nuance, you know?
Yeah.
And like that's what I think art is. Like I think it's actually something that at its core is beyond words. Like we
Mm.
can't put words to it. Um and I just I want in whatever way, man, I want to inspire the world, and I want to do it myself, because like if I can do it myself, that's how you inspire people. Um
Yes, sir.
to to find their art, to find their craft, to find what it is that they're
Mm.
here that only they know how to do. And it's just so cool to see. I'm so excited to see what happens at Musinary. Like it's such a gap, like you said. And
Yeah.
my first thing was like, oh, what about AI? Like AI is just going to come and create music. But even then, they're just going to
Mhm.
copy the same kind of stuff you see. I have a feeling that whatever you end up doing is going to be very unique. Um, and it's obviously we can't look forward. We can't connect the dots looking forward. So we don't know what it's going to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I have a really good feeling about it, man. Like it's going
Mhm.
to be incredible. I can't wait to see what it is that you create, what you build.
Yeah, man. Dude, I have no idea where it'll take us. Well, so I guess we're all like kind of in that journey.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a random question for you. And this is maybe getting a little bit more personal. So anything you don't feel comfortable sharing, don't. But
Mhm.
if you feel safe, feel free to share. I'm curious, like, you know, it sounds like everything's been kind of an upward trajectory, right? Like
Mm.
over the last couple of years. But you're a human being. We all have our days, our moments.
Mm.
Like, what is it that you feel keeps coming up for you, if anything,
Mm.
that is maybe kind of like, I wouldn't call it an obstacle, but it's something that you're working through, maybe like a shadow is like what they call it in psychology. Like
Mm.
anything that's
Mm.
coming up for you as you're in this phase of your life.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton. I think it's cool because like, yeah, sure, like a lot of these crazy things that happened in like the past year or two. But I think a lot of these things that you see on public is like, oh, it's very courageous, like public pitching. I think what happens in the behind the scenes is like so much doubt, so much insecurity. It's like, holy shit, is this gonna work? Like, am I gonna get like, you know, embarrassed in front of everyone, thousands of people? It's like there's always all these doubts. And I feel like one of the biggest ones I've always had, that was always such a mental like obstacle. And I'm totally comfortable sharing this. It's like my relationship with money. It's just so
Mm,
interesting because I think uh even back then I kind of noticed it where it's like, okay, now it's like I have the skills, I have experiences. Like, what is stopping me from actually turning something into a profitable business? So it always felt like, uh, the divide between someone who's here right now who makes $0 versus someone who's like, makes millions. And I felt like that divide was always very, very big. And I always felt like it was very impossible, that it was only reserved for like, the top 1% or like the very exclusive people in society. And I didn't really realize this until, I mean, I didn't really have that breakthrough until I'll say this summer because work at the startup. I was working actually for free for Alex, like completely for free for the first few months because all I wanted to do was give value as much as possible. Because like I think partially it's like like I really really care about the money. I just want to contribute and I just want to learn. So I felt like money at that time wasn't that important. But then of course it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I actually gotta make money. Like I need to, live off, money to, get basic necessities. And it's like, okay, I think it was such a hard thing for me to like ask for my first paycheck. Cause I was like, holy crap, like, do I even deserve this amount of money? Like, do I even deserve this type of like reimbursement for like the effort I put in? Like, I felt like I put in zero effort and like, I felt like I didn't deserve to make any money. But then it's like, if you look back, it's like clearly like you like clearly produce a lot of work for this company. It's like what's stopping you? So I feel like it was a big mental block to overcome. And it was funny because I actually talked to Elle back in I think May, yeah May, and then because I think back then she didn't get into coaching at the time, and then when she got to coaching, like she first started charging like $100, and now I don't know how she charges now, but I'm sure she charges like a bucket load of money to just have a one-on-one coaching with her. And then she was telling me it's like a lot of money comes down to the value that you perceive like of yourself and how much like how can you own up to that. So I think that was a very big lesson that I've had to learn. And starting Musinary, it's like, okay, I want to create very high quality premium cinematic music for these startups with a lot of budget who want to spend on like marketing campaigns. It's like at this point, like I know I have to, have that courage to step up and like, okay, say like, okay, this is how much I want to charge. That is like way more than like what my mind thinks I'm capable of charging. Cause like, like for example, compositions, I can spin up like a 4 minute composition in like a few hours. But that's like a few hours of work worth like, I don't know, thousands of bucks. Like that's crazy to me. Like I think for me, it's like kind of overcoming that self-worth issue. It's like, okay, I actually need to step up like my work,
Mm.
own up to it, and just be more courageous in that regard of just charging money. Because I think eventually I feel like when you're operating a business, when you're a business owner, you have to own up to your worth. I feel like that's such a fundamental in business because how else are you gonna make money? It's like if you're not comfortable saying, "Oh, I charge X amount of money," like how are we gonna make profits? So a lot of like selling, a lot of closing like clients. It's like you gotta own up to your worth. And if you're not comfortable with yourself in that regard, it's like you can't run a business because business is contingent on you owning up to your worth. So I think
Mm.
that's such a big lesson that I've had to learn recently.
What do you think like that comes from? Like, I'm curious where has that
Mm,
always kind of been I mean, obviously this is all kind of new to you, so you're learning as you're going. But if you were to guess, like, I'm curious, what do you think that is? Because by the way, I have the exact same thing on my own. Like, I'm
mhm,
also doing
yeah,
coaching now and stuff, and I'm finding it very difficult to charge what I believe I'm worth. So
yeah,
I'm just curious what your experience with that was, and kind of how do you trace that back?
yeah. I mean, I think it comes from just this scarcity mindset. It's like I think growing up, it's almost this implicit belief that you're taught that, oh, it's so hard to make money. The only way you can make money is through a very stable job where you get these paycheck from like a big company. So I think in that sense, I think there's several things that happened. It's like one, I thought that money was only possible by working at a large company, not through self-employment, which I thought was like completely out of the table at the time. I think two, it's like making money is extremely, extremely, extremely hard. Like one of the hardest things you can do. Because like if you look at the world, it's like there's so many like people that are living paycheck to paycheck. It's like it's like it's very like when you just look around the world, it's like very clear that like, oh, like making money is actually a pretty hard thing for a lot of people. And that kind of solidifies that belief. It's like, oh, that must apply for me as well. Like making money must be really hard. But then it's like I look at my own life. It's like I've gone through so many difficult stuff. It's like I've ran marathons, like I've gone through like very dark periods. It's like making money isn't really that hard, right? It's like if you can go through other hard things in life, like what's what's with money? Then it's like I think then that becomes more like a psychological challenge, not really a physical or a mental one. So I think it's kind of understanding just the different types of challenges and just trying to overcome these, honestly, like these self-limiting beliefs that you've just unconsciously imposed on yourself. Maybe just through examples from like your family or friends or your loved ones, and just trying to uncover that and just bring light to it, bring awareness to it, and really just trying to slowly wrestle it. It's almost like you have was like vines surrounding it. You're trying to like uncover like the roots of it and just trying to find what's like the essence of this belief and like where does it come from and how can I just try to accept that, but also find another perspective from it. So I think for me that's been like the whole like money thing.
That's dude. Once again, blown away by the amount of wisdom that you have. Like it's crazy, crazy. Yeah. I am learning the same thing, literally the
Mm,
same thing. Because the funny thing is, I did the corporate thing. I had the jobs. I had steady paychecks for the last like
mhm,
basically 10 plus years of my life. And, I recently decided like I want to carve my own path.
mm,
And for the first time, like I'm feeling the crunch of like, well, I used to spend money like literally I didn't think about it. Like it was like no, I don't have to worry
yeah,
because I had a lifestyle that was aligned with the amount of money I was making. It was great.
yeah,
And now it's a little different. And I notice how it kind of carries into my like inspiration or creativity or energy. If
mhm,
I'm like constantly worried about money, I feel like it creates this like energy of like contraction where I don't feel like I can
mm,
actually create something
mhm,
from like an abundance. So, there's like all this stuff I know it's like really woo, but like this whole like manifestation idea of like money. And I think at
yeah,
the end of the day, it all comes down to what you're saying, which is like, do you just believe that you're allowed to, or you permission, do you give yourself permission to receive money from the world in whatever way? Like that one sentence alone, do you feel like you're allowed? Is it okay? And
yeah,
it sounds obvious when I say it, but if anyone listening like actually asks themselves that question and notices what happens in their body when they respond, I promise you
yeah.
most people are going to be like, "No, I don't think
Yeah, it's
so."
like the tension you feel within you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's like no, like money is it's abundant, you know?
Dude, it's like everywhere. Like, look how much like how much money companies are making. It's like, of course they have like a few like $1 million to spare on you. You know, like I feel like just money is just all over all around you. It's like you just kind of have to kind of recognize that. It's like a shift in perspective.
Dude, this is such
Yeah.
a perfectly timed conversation. You have no idea.
No, that it's great.
Oh, um, let me see if there's anything on my list that I really wanted to. Ooh, I have one question that's again off the beaten path.
Oh,
What
I love those questions.
Perfect. What's your
Yeah.
relationship with like God or the divine or source
Mm.
or whatever your framework of it is, if any?
Yeah. Oh my god. I feel like I'm all over the place with this question. Um, let's see. Uh, I definitely believe in a God. I think. Uh, oh my god. Yeah, I definitely believe in a God. I think. Uh, I think all signs point there has to be like a creator. Uh, I think okay. I think one thing that's just been such a huge proponent of my optimism in life. I think I'm actually kind of irrationally optimistic long term, no matter how dire or how grim uh like the present circumstances are, is because I feel like much of my life it feels like I'm just pursuing something that's eternal. Some like I know that you like to call it like the beyond. I think that's kind of a maybe like a fitting name for that. It's almost like it's like you have these moments in your life where it's like you feel like time, space is almost like contracting on you. Not contracting, like I don't know. It's almost like it's just stopped, and now it's like you're just. It's like you're in this different level of consciousness that you really don't experience. Like for me, it's like watching sunsets. I think one of like a key memory that happened like when I was in China was I was in this random city with like random friends, and then we just randomly hiked on this mountain, and I saw like one of the most rhapsodic sunsets of my entire life. And it's like one of those moments where you realize that like, dude, like this, like what your consciousness is experiencing in real time. It is like how can you possibly believe that this is one from from the physical material world? Like for this experience to happen that's so profound, that makes you just feel so expansive. Like there is no logical reason for me to point that this is just some sort of like, you know, combination of atoms and neurons just firing in my head. Like I believe there's something way more to that. And that's kind of where I'm like, dude, there has to be just some source of divinity, some source of transcendence that's we as humans we can briefly tap into that just kind of blows our minds of what's possible and just fills our life with so much wonder and so much efflorescence, so much like beauty, uh, serenity, and like those are some of my favorite moments. And like I think one of my friends is like, "Oh, isn't that like hedonism where you're just seeking pleasure?" But I think it's not really. It's I don't like. I think hedonism is more for like short term pleasure. I think this type of transcendence I'm chasing or pursuing, I believe is some sort of like eternity. I believe that like maybe like in the afterlife or something, that's kind of that state we're gonna be in once our material bodies just disappear off the face of Earth. I think that's where our consciousness will be heading into, which is why I believe there's a God. I'm still exploring what type of God. Like I think right now it seems like the most plausible is Christianity, but honestly, like I feel like I just don't know enough on, whether I could fully dedicate my life to that. But I definitely believe there is a source of divinity, and I believe as humans we can't fully tap into it for an eternity, but we can tap into like these brief pockets of time, like watching a sunset, being with friends. It's just like it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and I think that's one of the most beautiful moments that a human gets to experience.
So well said. So well said. I love that, man.
I don't know, man. Like I try my best to like explain it,
No,
but
you did it. That was
yeah,
beautiful. I'm feeling like I'm like I feel like I'm gonna float away. I just really resonated with what you said.
yeah,
Um, it kind of sounds like, I mean, the way I would connect it to my own way of seeing this is
mm,
the divine seeps in to our life, into this earth, into the human
mm,
life in ways, and the more perceptive and aware and open we are to noticing it, we'll notice it more and more. And like sunsets in nature is the easiest way to feel it because, like I
mm,
said, it just is. It's not trying, and that's what God is, in my opinion. It's just got this peaceful being.
mm,
Um, this being, not like being as a thing, but like being, like it's just is. Anyways, it gets real
ooh,
philosophical and
yeah,
confusing, but those sunsets and those moments with your friends that you're talking about to me are like when it seeps through and we notice it and we're like, wow. And
yeah,
in a way, like we kind of like chase it. But the funny thing is, they never come when we chase. They come when we're not chasing. Like it's the opposite.
yeah. If if we have the presence to notice it and actually be aware, No, I
Yeah.
think it's so cool because it feels like these moments they're not just like they don't come by accident. I feel like they're kind of reminders of who we are innately as human beings. It's like maybe like I don't know, we have like a rough day at work or something, and then we just like take a stroll in the evening, and like holy crap, it's like I'm kind of forgetting who I am as a person. So it's like I feel like these moments come when we forget who we are to some extent. It's like reminding ourselves like, dude, this is where you come from, bro. Like this source of divinity, like that's where you come from, and like it's like dude, tap into it,
And it's a whole life
Yeah.
journey to tap into and feel it, understand it. So
Yeah, exactly. It's the best. It's the best thing ever, man.
amazing. Well, I'm all good. This has been such a pleasure, like legit. Thank you so much, Justin, for coming on. Anything else on your heart you wanted to share with me or the audience? Let us know where we can find you. I'll definitely link everything in the description. But I would love to hear any last
Yeah.
words that you have, anything you want to share.
I mean, dude, you keep crushing it, man. Um, it's so awesome to just see you crush with your podcast, and I mean, it's crazy. Like, I feel like I owe a lot to you because, like, I think you were like the first person I met on Twitter, and you know, I think that really kind of reinforced belief. Oh, dude, you should meet more people. So I think, yeah, I'm very honored to be on this podcast, and yeah, I mean, where to find me? I'm most active on Twitter. I still call it Twitter. It's just my handle, so Jeston Lu, JESTONLU. I have a website now, so just jestonlu.com. I also I also write pretty frequently now. I have this newsletter called Artists, which is basically just a very raw, unfiltered, like public journal where I log like, weekly journal entries. Like I label like 001, 002. Like I intend to do like hundreds of these, just like sharing thoughts on like what it's like to, build an artistic life, build artistic venture, just sharing the ins and outs. And yeah,
Beautiful. Yeah, man. Keep documenting your journey. Like it's actually a gift to the world in ways that you can't see right now. I promise you that.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
So